More music. Better mental health. Only on IPL Radio.
That's right. You are listening to IPL Radio, and it's Good Vibrations with Mish and
Todd.
I stuffed it up before. I said
all
your
right.
name for you, and I should never have done that.
No, that's fine.
Todd's here. Yay!
I am. It's been a bit of a hard couple of months, so I apologise to our listeners for being
all
so
good.
absent
All
on
good.
everyone.
All good. We've got our first interview with us now. It's Bianca. Thanks for joining us, Bianca.
Good morning.
Thanks for having me, Mish
Good
and Todd.
morning. Now, you are here to talk about family and defence.
Yes, I am.
Defence forces, etc. Where do we start with it? Now, Todd's from a family, defence family.
Yep. Yeah. My wife is currently serving.
Yep. So you have a better interaction with this interview than I will.
Maybe a deeper
but
understanding
maybe an
from a
understanding,
personal
but
level.
I'll have more questions because I don't know anything about it. So you're an author of these wonderful books that you've got here. Someone I Love is in the Navy. Now, you've got Someone I Love is in defence.
So that's the overbranching.
Yep.
So the series is a series of 9 books. So it's a colouring, activity and storybook for Army, Navy and Air Force.
Amazing.
Yeah,
That's
so I wanted
cool.
to do each service individually because obviously they've got...
bits different. Yeah.
Yeah, very different, very different.
Yeah. So what made you do this? This is a big undertaking.
It certainly is. I think I come from a non-defence background originally,
Okay.
so my parents were never in or anything like that. I joined the Navy at 18 as a gap year and then went on to have a little bit of a career. And obviously since I've had children, my husband's still serving. So I've seen the difference between being a non-defence child and a defence child and just the challenges that my children have that like children who have parents who are always here don't have, if that makes sense. So I really just wanted to get some resources for my children to help them through the emotions. But I also work as a defence school mentor as well. So I've got about 40 families that I work with through my school.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
It is, yeah. So I've managed to see like lots of these different challenges and just see the way that children cope. And one thing that I have noticed is that when we openly talk about these things and prepare children, they seem to cope better when the changes do happen.
It's funny how kids tend to say, when they're really down, they tend to say, talking doesn't help, it's not going to fix anything, but it really, really does. Also, for our listeners out there, gap year is where someone straight out of school goes into the Defence Force for a specialised 1-year period where they go and do the recruit school like everyone else, but then they get to go around to different bases, and in the case of Navy, to different ships for the year before deciding what they want to go on and do.
That's a really good idea. Doesn't your son want to do that?
He does, but because he's only done a year 10 equivalent, he's ineligible for that. But because he's a legacy, he'll be snapped up fairly quickly. They reckon that he's going to get in within the next 2 months, because his mum is Navy.
Yeah,
although we're working through some medical stuff, as you know.
Yeah,
So.
that's a really good idea that they get to look into different areas in each of the... Do they do that in all the defence?
They do, but I believe it's slightly different. So I joined up as a gap year in the Navy. So for me, I did recruit school, seamanship, and then I got to jump around. So I didn't actually have like a trade per se, but I have heard in, I think it's Army and Air Force, they actually sign up to do something for that 12 months. So for me, it was a lot of jumping around, which was really great because I got to see all the different roles and try and work out what I wanted to do.
That's a really good idea. It's a pity that we can't all do that all in our life. just 6 months tester in each job.
They've actually changed it. So the original sign up now is a lot less, and I think if you're Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander, and I think for some females as well, the contracts are only like 1 or 2 years, so significantly less than what people were traditionally signing up for.
Yeah, my wife had to sign up for a minimum 6 years
Wow,
to start
huge.
with. They're actually opening things up now for New Zealand, UK and American citizens to be able to come over and join the force as well.
Why?
So
because we're not getting enough here.
I think so. I can only
Retention and recruitment,
speculate
I
on
think.
that. Retention has always seemed to be a bit of a problem, but having our what's the word for it? Colleagues, not colleagues. The word's just gone out of my mind. But having those countries that we aligned with, as joining. I mean, it's nothing new to the Defence Force.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Actually.
I've gone and dropped my wife off for deployment or picked her up, and there's been lieutenants or commanders from the New Zealand Navy, doing
Interesting.
like a student exchange type of thing.
Yeah, it's quite
That's
common.
another question, because I don't know anything about this, so I'm going to have a huge amount of questions. But with each of the countries for Navy, let's just talk about Navy, would their rules and regulations be the same overall or not?
No.
I think it'd be similar, but not the same. So they all have different technologies in that. So like
that would be difficult for someone coming in.
yeah.
From
There's a
different
lot of
country.
similarities in the ships
Hierarchy would be
with
the same,
with
would it
New
not?
Zealand
Similar.
and Australia.
Similar,
Okay.
but even then
Yeah.
they don't have the same ranks and things like
Oh,
that. So they
okay.
have the equivalent of, but even
Wow.
between Navy, Army, and Air Force, they have different ranks, but they're all called different things as well. So you can kind of work out the equivalent of, but for some ranks there's not quite an
Okay,
equivalent as
another
well.
question. A higher rank in the Army,
Yeah.
is he ranked over someone in the Navy?
I don't think so. Like
For
so
example,
say
if you were just a general sailor
yeah.
and an Army
So even with
officer
sailors,
would come in.
even with sailors, you've got your senior sailors and junior sailors. And with
Yeah.
your junior sailors, you've got like 3 different ranks, and senior
Jeez.
sailors, you've got 3. So not quite, and it all goes off their experience, their expertise, how long they've been deployed for, and things like that.
Okay,
So
if
There is a ranking chart that shows you the equivalence across the
defence?
Triforces,
Yeah.
across the 3 different forces. And at the end of the day, an officer is an officer and an enlistee is an enlistee. And I use that word because I'm not sure what the word is for Army
Overall
or
in
Air
the
Force.
defence
Yeah, so,
Okay.
if an Army officer were to be on the Navy base, as a posting there, and had sailors working under them,
Yeah.
then they would absolutely
Okay.
be in charge.
Cool.
Chain of command is absolute.
Okay.
It's always
so
absolute.
It is across the board.
But back to the books, mate.
No, let's back to the
Because
books.
they're staring
Yeah,
at me
I know,
straight
sorry,
in the
can we
face and they
pick
look
one up?
absolutely
Pick one up.
fantastic.
So this is Someone I Love is in the Navy. This is ages. This is an activity book.
It
Ages-
is,
how-
yeah.
What ages? You just doing it
so
4
this
to
one
8?
I've got from 4 to 8. So some of them are really basic, like tracing activities, and then we've got like number counting ones.
Did you make these up?
Yeah.
Wow.
So lots of hours. Lots and
That's
lots of hours.
awesome.
Obviously dealing with editors and cartoonists and that as well.
Yeah.
So
there's an activity book. Colouring book specifically.
yeah, so I did
Okay.
the colouring in book. So I already obviously had all the cartoons drawn up, and I
Yep.
know that younger
Oh.
children can't quite comprehend some of the activities. So I just wanted them to be included as well.
But I love that the activity book gives them a chance to colour as well, because it's
the
all
colouring
it's
books
all
as well.
outlines and black and white. I love that. I actually got a sneak peek of the actual.
So
book,
what's this
the
one?
storybook.
Oh, that's the storybook,
That's the
yeah.
storybook.
That's very, very colourful, very, very
Open it
relatable
up
for
for
young
us.
children too. It's absolutely amazing.
So I've done hardcover as well because I know how much kids love their books and they want to walk
do.
around with
Oh,
them.
that's
Yeah.
so cute.
So yeah, they're
Aw.
quite adorable. And then I was worried that there might be too many kids that might have the same book. So I've also allowed them to put a photo of their loved one who's
love
serving as well.
that.
And it's just a nice way to individualize the books as well.
Makes it very
So what age
personal.
group? Do you reckon 4 to 8 for all of these?
So probably up to
Older.
5 for the colouring in book,
Yeah.
4 to 8 for the activity, and then storybook probably more pre-primary, so your
Yeah.
7, 8-year-olds. 6, 7-year-olds. But also it kind of depends on their comprehension level
Yeah,
and
of
that as
course.
well. So with the
Of
3
course.
books, so I've got 3 storybooks. The Navy one focuses on a long deployment. Then I've got the Air Force, which is where the parents are separated, so the mum has moved away for training. And then with the Army, that one is where the child moves around quite a lot, and at the end the mother deploys and the grandparents look after the child. So
Where
I wanted
did you get your research stories from?
so all the stories are just ones that I've heard over the time.
Okay.
So obviously I work with defence kids, and I really wanted to make them relatable, and I wanted each of the books to focus on something different as well, because obviously certain parts of the Defence Force have more deployments. Some might move around a lot more. So I really wanted to change up the narrative and have one book for each of those, because relocating and deployments, that seem to be the main things that children struggle with. But then when it comes to my activity book, it starts really basic. So it even starts, what is the Navy? So these books are really good if there's like a parent who's just joining the Defence Force as well. So it explains what they are, what they do.
Different jobs I just saw.
yeah,
and
different
the
jobs.
biscuits I like that.
That's fantastic because it's important to remember that not everyone goes in for gap year. Not everyone goes in fresh out of school. Case in point, my family, where my wife has been in for over 8 years now, but we'd had all 3 of our children prior to her enlistment. So, and that was a very, very different dynamic to someone who joins when they're young and then meets their partner and has kids.
Absolutely,
Exactly.
Yeah, so we were obviously different. So we had both joined before we had children, and then I think me seeing that as well, like our kids have obviously only ever known Defence Life. They don't know any different. So for them, it is normal for, you know, the parents or my husband to go away for long periods of time. And I like to try and normalise that by pointing out, you know, Jack also has his dad who goes away, and just making it feel like it's a bit normal for them as well. And then we also relate a lot to FIFO families as well. So I always kind of say, oh, you know, our mates down the road, like their dad's away for work as well.
Sometimes I think the kids handle it and bounce back better than we do as adults.
Well, and maybe you need to do adult books next.
Well, I think it depends on their age. But so my husband's just got back, and it's so funny. So I've got 3 children. So I've got 9, 7 and 2. And my 9-year-old struggled the most this time, which I was not expecting. I thought, you know, since he's been through the most deployments, he would adjust the best. My middle child, so my 7-year-old, he was fine, didn't even realise that dad had gone, but he does have ADHD, so I think it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. Dad's not here, so I can't think about him. And then my youngest, she struggled a lot as well for the first few days, but then it was kind of like, oh, dad's car's not there anymore. Like, we just kind of forget about it until she sees him on video,
Wow. That would be hard. Video calls, like can you do that when they're away?
It depends on what they do.
Okay,
so they've changed a lot of different things now. For our family, when they go off comms, they completely go off comms, so there's nothing there. But for other families, you know, you've quite often got emails that you can send, and sometimes the Wi-Fi is good enough that they can do videos. But when they pull into port, then obviously you can do video
if that
chats.
makes it harder for the kids to actually be able to speak to them, and then it brings back all the emotions, oh, dad's gone away, or...
It can depend on whether they're surface fleet or, as the Navy personnel would call them, skimmers, or whether they're submarines. Submarines can be a lot more difficult because at times they're under the water and off comms, you know, permanently while they're under the water. They might come up to periscope depth and they might send family transmissions in amongst their signals. But you've basically got a list of numbers, and it's messaged by numbers. Like 23 might be, I love you and miss you so much.
They've actually just changed that. Thank goodness.
Oh,
yes, no, they have. Yep, they certainly have. So now they can still...
Submariner, or you've just got first-hand knowledge of it?
I've just got knowledge of it from the families at the school,
It's like the Morse code.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you're saying.
So it used to be numbers. So like 23 was I love you, and then there was like 54, which was send me money. Like they were all slightly different. And you're allowed 25 words or numbers. So it would be like number 1, so it would be hi honey, and then you'd do like 34, like we miss you, and then so it was.
And the real crafty ones would have like, you know, a number that said the footy scores this week are, and then the next 4 numbers are the footy scores.
Just to confuse them.
That's amazing.
So so that has changed now.
Why have they changed that?
So they've changed it because obviously I'm guessing the transmissions can be longer, so they're allowed to send emails instead now, which means they can do the real words, which definitely helps.
That's nice.
yes, definitely nice for those families.
A little bit more personal.
A little bit.
But surface fleet is a lot easier. Surface fleet, they've actually upgraded the Wi-Fi over the last couple of years. It's quite good. They've even made sure that there's USB charge ports on every bunk as well. So
that's great.
Some people made the comments of, luxury cruise liners now. It's still not. I'm just going to put that out there.
I've
it's
been
still
into
not.
a submarine. I got to tell you, I would get claustrophobic. It's just I could not sleep in one of those bunks.
Yeah,
They're
quite small.
No way. How do you roll over?
Even on surface ships, they are tiny. Unless you talk about something like Chills, which is, or the Hydro ships, which are like luxury cruise liners. But anyway, get off topic again.
Amazing.
Yeah. Well, let's face it, they probably don't sleep that much because it's 6 hours on, 6 hours
Is that
off.
what it is?
Yeah. So you know you can only get so much sleep in 6 hours, can't you?
Yeah, that's true.
My wife, when she's out at sea, is 7 on, 7 off. 5 on, 5 off, and in the 7 and 5, that's when she has to eat, sleep, laundry, right? And that's within each 24-hour window, right? So that's not like you know, one day after another. No. This is each day.
Yeah. So there's no.
Look, there has to be a journey. I know there's a journey that led up to creating these books. What was the process leading up to this? What made you come to the decision of, I want to write these books. I want to do this for the kids.
There there wasn't much out there, and I think that's what I really, really struggled with.
Have you done anything like this before?
No. I should also state that I have ADHD. I only found out last year, but I've always kind of had these like impulses or these hyperfixations, and this was definitely one of them in a great way. But that's kind of where it all kind of came about. So my husband was looking at going back to sea again, and there are some resources. So Hayley Ann Boswell has a series of books as well for Army, Navy and Air Force for kids, but they're mainly, at the time, they were mainly focused on like kindergarten children, kindergarten, pre-primary, maybe year one. And there was nothing that I could find that was really for, you know, that middle primary school and a little bit up area. Whereas if you look at America, they've got so many different resources, and other countries around the world have heaps. Now I understand why there's not many Australian resources, and that's because there's a lot of prohibited words and things like that. So for me, once these books were done, I actually had to wait like 6 months to get permission to use a prohibited word, so I had to get permission from the Minister of Defence. So it definitely was a long process. At the start, I didn't even really think about it. I just kind of
ask, what do you mean by prohibitive words? Can you give us an example?
Yeah. So Air Force. The word Air Force with a space in between it is a prohibited word. Now I know that is actually written in lots of different books and people haven't got permission. But being that my husband is still serving and has a security clearance, it was really imperative that I
Air Force with 2 words. With
Air Force with 2 words, yep. And then any sort of abbreviation.
So Air Force has to be 1 word, maybe?
Well, that's a way you probably could have got around it. And that was kind of my backup option if nothing else worked. But all your abbreviations, so like, ADF, RAN, so Royal Australian Navy, RAF, all of them, they were all prohibited words in that as well. And a part of some of the activities in the activity book is...
How did you find out which words they were? Did you know that?
Yeah, so if you go to defence regulations, it actually states it in there. So
does it tell you why they're prohibited?
No, not in as many words, but I reached out to the defence lawyers and that, and they basically said that they don't want anyone pretending to be them, and it was really just to protect the Australian Defence Force.
Against, impersonation, etc. Yeah,
that's it, and that makes sense. It really does. Whereas obviously I was trying to do it to help them. Yeah. So I did end up getting permission, which was great. But I guess when I first started these books, I went all in. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to get a cartoonist. And I just started. And then it wasn't until I was like 3/4 of the way through and I was like, oh, I'm doing this. Like I'd reached out to people and was like, hey, I want to try and do this. What do you think? And then I kind of, got 3/4 of the way through and I was like, oh, I've told enough people I have to go through with this now, which probably helped because I think, I have a tendency
for doing that as well. I tell people I'm going to do this when I'm not sure if I'm going to do it. And then I'm like, oh, I've told this many people. Now
I have to do it. Yeah. Well, I was extremely fortunate. So I managed to get picked up on a course and they flew me over to Sydney and it was all about teaching you the basics of how to build a business and that. So it's a structure called Frontline Labs, and they help veterans and their partners to develop businesses. So I went over there. They were really supportive, and then there was quite a lot of people in the defence community who were like, we need resources, we need things. So on my website, I've also got lots of like free printables and that as well, because I know not all families can afford.
There's a lot of stuff on there. I noticed.
It's
a great website, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Tell us how to get on there.
So the website is www.someoneIloveisindefence.com.au. So I wanted to try and make it quite simple. I know the books are Someone I Love is in the Army, Navy or Air Force. But because, they're a whole series, it was Someone I Love is in Defence. So originally it was Someone I Love is in the ADF, but with all the restricted words, I did end up getting permission for the use of ADF. But by that stage, I had already started up all the social media and that. So I stuck with Defence, which I almost regret now because... I do, because when you think of defence, you think of like self-defence and things like that. So I think...
People might not know what ADF means.
No, but I think that's probably more common than defence.
But if they needed those books, they'd know what ADF means.
No, don't even get me started on the acronyms and stuff, because on the number plates it says Australian Defence Organisation, and they tried to change ADF to ADO at some point, but it failed.
Really?
They fell flat on their face with that one.
That was probably with DCO as well. So that was Defence Community Organisation, and now they've changed to Defence Member Family Support. So a lot of the acronyms change quite regularly. I know one of the most recent ones, we used to call them MWDU. So it was Member with Dependents Unaccompanied. So that was where a family was separate. So the family might be living in Sydney and then the deployed member might be in Adelaide.
The member is unaccompanied by their family.
Yeah, well, they've now changed that to IRF and ARF. So unaccompanied residential family and unaccompanied Residential, and then there was another one. So they've changed it all again.
I haven't seen that one yet.
No, they haven't overly advertised that, but they've definitely changed it.
Okay, next time I'm on the DHA portal, which is the Defence Housing Australia for the listeners out there.
So you'll be an ARF.
I'm sure I'll see that.
Yeah, you'll be an ARF, which is accompanied residential family.
ARF. It sounds like a seal.
I know. Yes, there was a few good jokes going around when they changed it all.
Wow. That's, I don't know why they keep. You know what the disappointing thing is? What I'm seeing with you releasing these books is the fact that the Defence Force haven't done anything about this themselves.
Yeah, so DMFS and that can't support them because I'm also employed as a Defence School mentor. I have been fortunate though. One of the retention teams has got on board with the resources and have started putting them in their deployment packs, which is amazing. So there is definitely some support there. And then from the local defence community, I've sold quite a lot, and they're starting to get into like the museums, so people can buy them at like the Army Museum and stuff.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it is really great because that's where a lot of the families and that go. And also a lot of libraries are also getting the storybooks as well. So there's a lot of schools that have a Defence School mentor, which is, you know, my primary role. So it's really nice to know that they will have some resources as well. And I've had quite a few people reach out and be like, oh, we're doing scrapbooks because we've used your book and you used a scrapbook. So that's really nice to know that, people are following that.
Did you ever feel like giving up though?
Many a times. So these resources, by the end, I pretty much wasn't going to release them. I had sent hundreds of emails and I wasn't even really sure where I needed to get permission from. Like I knew I needed permission, but I didn't know who or where from. So I'd sent emails to ADF branding, so then there's also Army, Navy and Air Force branding. So I'd send hundreds of emails to those ones. Then I'd send emails to the lawyers. And then eventually I ended up sending them to the Ministers of Defence and that, and Minister of Veteran Affairs, just to try and see, hey, what's the process? So I was quite fortunate. Hayley, who has released a series of books, she did it a few years ago, and she was able to tell me a little bit about the process she went through. But obviously over that time period, a lot of stuff had changed. And hand had changed over and people were doing different roles.
I have a lot of admiration for you sticking through it and actually, getting to the end of it to the point of release, because it would have been so easy to go, you know what, so many emails, so many nope, not us, so many rejections, so many go talk to someone else. It would have been too easy to say I give up.
So when I go into ADHD hyperfixation, nothing takes me very long. So the whole series actually took me about 10 weeks to put together. So, when I fixate, I fixate. So I obviously had the ideas for quite a while.
That's not 10 weeks of normal time. That's
no. That's 10 weeks of like
16 hours a day or something.
Yeah, that's like with 2 hours sleep.
Yeah.
Which is why I really had to use my editors and things like that.
I had an inkling because I do the same.
So and then once they were done, it was kind of like, oh, it's over. Like I can move on. But then it was like, oh no, the books actually, now I have to get them printed. Now I have to. And I think that's why I really enjoyed the process as well, because it was like, oh, I've designed them. That was so much fun. And then it was like, oh, I'm going to try and learn how to, design my own website. And then I've got to, reach out to all these different organizations and try and get them into libraries and stuff. So I think the process has been really enjoyable because I've been reaching out and doing lots of different things, which is something I really enjoy. Well, now I'm kind of sitting back and I'm like, oh, I've got so many books at home. Now I need to get rid of them.
The thing is too, you would have been self-funded with this.
Yes, 100% self-funded.
It's not cheap, I wouldn't imagine, to print it.
No, I'm still severely out of pocket, which is fine because, as long as the resources start getting out there and people start getting them.
It'll get traction.
Yeah, no, they will. And I deliberately chose...
to write a sequel.
Yeah, that would be lovely. So originally I tried printing through like Amazon and there was a few other like local Australian ones that you could print through. The quality just wasn't there. So I actually ended up getting these printed overseas, and to get them printed overseas, you obviously need like larger volumes of orders. So I ended up with 500 of each book, which they are slowly trickling away.
Don't tell me they're in your house or piled up
no, they are. I actually don't go into my theatre at the moment because I've deliberately got them stacked up there, but now I get like anxious every time I walk in. I'm like, oh no, the books are still there. I need to send an email. I need to do this. I need to try and get them out there. And I think that's kind of been an ongoing conversation with my husband. He's like, so are they going to be here forever? Or like, what are we doing? And I'm like, no, they're selling. And I'm really fortunate. So Australian Military Bank have actually picked them up as well. So they've got 18 branches around Australia, all close to military bases. or on military bases.
I rue the day when my wife discharges because we're going to have to get escorts to the bank every single time.
Yeah, so there used to be one just off here off Rockingham, but now you've got to go all the way onto base.
Garden Island, yeah.
Yeah, but no, they've been really great. So they're stocking my books, and people can pick them up there. So they literally just order the book through my website as they're standing there. There's no postage or anything like that. It's just so I can keep track of where my books are and how many are selling, so then I can top up the banks as well.
Awesome.
So they're definitely trickling out there, and obviously the retention team's got on board, so they've got a few hundred there, and then hopefully some of the other organisations that might like to get on board as well.
You should be so proud of yourself.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
have your kids done that?
Yes, my kids love them. They helped me, and I think I had used other resources in that, and I kind of was like identifying what they enjoyed. So they really enjoyed like the puzzles and the matching ones and learning a little bit about the acronyms and the words and things like that. So that's why I really wanted to focus and put them in the books as well.
Do you have to tell your kids off for stealing the stock? I do that with, like, I've got an IT company, and my kids, they always go into my stock shelf and steal the bloody iPhone cables. Stop stealing my stock, guys.
No, that's funny. No, they each got their own book, and we're working through this one first. But I guess I'm lucky because I can just print off the pages, can't I?
Yeah.
So if there's something that I
can't
really want to
print
focus
off
on,
iPhone cables.
no, that would be really nice if you could, because they get expensive.
They
They're
can.
like a pen.
Look, I'll admit the iPhone cables are only $4 or $5 for me to buy. That they sell for $20 to $30. It's daylight robbery. But still, I don't like my stock depleting. And then when I need to go out to a client with a cable, it's like, where are they?
What's next?
So really just seeing where this goes. So reaching out to more organisations and things like that. So I would love to do some more books. I would love to do a storybook on a road trip. So someone gets a posting and they get to travel to their new destination, because that's something that happens quite commonly. So we're obviously over in the West, and we have a lot of families who leave here, and instead of just flying, they'll turn it into a road trip. So Defence will actually pay for your accommodation.
We did that as well. We turned it into where's our next adventure?
Yeah.
And yes, we did the road trip when we went from HMAS Cerberus to Perth. Instead of flying, they paid an equivalent travel. Yeah. The thing is, though, the one thing is, and I tried to get them to reconsider this position. When we fly, they'll pay the accommodation for all those days that we're in temporary accommodation while we're waiting for our stuff to come across, which was 2 weeks. When we drive, they won't pay for the accommodation at each place during that travel.
Oh, really?
It is not written in Pac-Man that they have to pay for that.
Yeah.
And so therefore they get to do a little bit of a double dip. Well, not really a double dip, but you know what I mean, right?
More incentives.
Where they don't have to pay for the accommodation at each stop along the way. Yet if we flew, they would have had to pay the whole lot of the accommodation over in the gaining locality.
Yeah.
So I brought that up with Defence Families Australia, and I'm hoping that it's something that we'll see change in the future if it hasn't already.
Oh, that would be great, because I know there are a lot of incentives to drive. Like, you can only drive, I think it's 500 Ks a day, or not even 500, it's like 250 or 300 or something. So for that reason, you actually do get paid a lot more, because they expect it to take a lot longer.
Well, we didn't get paid a lot more. We got paid the same equivalent amount of travel because we elected to drive.
Yeah.
So we got paid what they would ordinarily pay for the airfares and all the bits and bobs, except for the accommodations. We did get the meal allowances still.
That's good. Did you guys camp along the way, or...?
We didn't camp. We decided to stay in bed and breakfasts on hotels and things like that. We stayed in Adelaide for a while because my family's from there. So again, it's about making it an adventure, something that appeals to the kids rather than we've got to move home.
Yeah, giving them something to look forward to.
Yeah, and that's really, really important to keep that positive spin on it, because it really is a mental health thing. I mean, at the end of the day, the kids are being ripped out of the school, being taken away from their friends. And yeah, sure, there's Defence friends that we say, look, our Defence friends, we don't say goodbye, we say see you later, because there's an opportunity for us to catch up with them at the next posting.
I've got a really good example of that. So when I had my last baby, so 2 years ago, for my maternity leave, we travelled Australia for about 6 months. So my husband had long service, and so we left here, we went up to Darwin, we had friends in Darwin that we caught up with, we went to Townsville, we had friends in Townsville that we caught up with. So even though, they're going, you still say to the kids, oh, we'll probably see them around, or they'll probably post back at some point.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when they do post back, when there's that one that does post back that they were friends with, it's such a momentous event because it's like, oh my goodness, I haven't seen you in 8 years.
We have friends coming back from America in March next year, and we are so excited. So they posted over there probably about 12 months ago. And because of the time difference, it's about 12 hours. So occasionally the kids will get to jump on Skype and that. But I told them the other day, I'm like, they're coming back. And they were just so excited. We can't wait to see them. So.
That's awesome.
We've actually just had our favourite bank teller go over to the US. Her partner's been
I know who you're
posted
talking
there.
about.
Yeah, Alia. Yeah. So no offence, Carolee. But Alia, we miss you. Come back soon.
I think she'll be over there for about 7 years at this rate.
But, I mean, yeah, probably. But that just, gives everyone a sort of an example of how close-knit the defence community is, right?
It is close.
And I think that's one of the perks of the defence community as well.
Really
like,
is.
obviously, you've got some downsides, but one of those perks is, wherever you travel, you usually know someone or you know of someone who knows of someone.
Yeah,
so
small
that's
world.
Although I got to admit, I feel a bit like a can I say black sheep or dark sheep or something like that, whatever, because I'm a male spouse in the defence. There are, and that's a growing community in and of itself because
there's significantly more females
women
now
in the defence force than ever before, and that's something that I'll be able to say again next week and next year. Thankfully, it's a very inclusive workforce now. But
do you find that most women, though, it's a dual serving couple where they're both within the defence force?
Actually, no.
Oh, okay.
No, I've got my fair share of male spouse friends that are not involved in defence. But I have found that the support there, unless it's been localised, like at the Cerberus Cottage, which is a family organisation, it's been dubbed the Mums Club, and it's not as big as what it was, but we've got Marilla.
I was just going to say, have you reached out to Claire at Marilla? Because
no, I haven't, because my kids have grown up.
Yeah.
But aside from congregating at places like that, there's not a lot of female spouses that actually want to catch up. But that's something that I came to terms with a long time ago.
Yeah, but it's hard that you had to feel like you were the black sheep and you were left out, because that's certainly not what anyone wants, if you know what I mean. So I actually get on with Claire at Marilla really well. So I might actually mention that, because I know they've got new funding and they're looking for a different venue and things like that. So they're potentially looking at starting up new groups and running different things. So I'll mention that to her, and especially obviously with all the Americans and that are coming over, there's going to be a lot of changes in that space.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Maybe that's something that I can get involved with then, because, I've come from that in 8 years ago, where being a male spouse, was still really difficult.
Yeah. I also feel like people who don't have children, I feel like it's hard for them to meet other partners in that as well. Because if you've got children, you usually find someone who's through the school, and they'll have a defence school mentor, and they'll do meetings, or they run activities, and most of the activities are focused around children. But there is that huge gap where, it might be, say, like a young couple who don't have children yet, and the partner's at home, but there's not as many events or not as many opportunities for them to meet people.
Yeah,
there you
definitely.
There you go.
Definitely.
Wow, a lot to take in, and it's very interesting when you look at it from behind the scenes, because we also, particularly here in Rockingham, because we're a Navy town, because I'm from northern suburbs. So
Community,
when I moved to South,
even.
What's that?
We're a greater Navy community.
Yeah. So, is that the word? Community. Yeah. So you see lots of people with their
uniforms.
What's it called? The camos, blue camo.
They were called DPNUs, which is Disruptive Pattern Navy Uniform.
And they're MMUs or something now?
Yeah. They've changed the acronym because it's a different pattern. And they've got a different pattern for shore and for sea
is that right?
now. Yeah. And it's
Gosh.
slightly
Anyway, we
styled
see them a
differently.
lot. You see them a lot walking around in those here in town.
Yep.
Going to the shops and stuff. So
They've changed all the uniforms across the Air Force when they're on land or wherever, like one of their uniforms, they don't even have the epaulets on the shoulders anymore. They've got their rank insignia thing.
Oh, one question.
On the chest.
I've got to do this one question. obviously uniform is a big thing for Navy, for Defence Force. How do you cope with the bloomin' ironing?
Oh, I refuse to iron. No, we kind of have a rule that after Anzac Day, that uniform, if it's still clean, it gets hung up or it gets dry cleaned, because I refuse to, especially ceremonials, I refuse to iron them. I've done my time, and that's not me anymore.
Fortunately, ceremonials only get worn like once or twice a year because they are a pain in the rear end to get on and off.
Oh,
yeah, I used to do them, but no.
The day-to-day uniform isn't strictly.
No, and because of the pattern and that, you don't need to iron them, but you also can't. So you can't put them, well, you're not supposed to put them in the dryer either, because they've got fire retardant on them. So if you are putting heat on them, it's actually removing that fire retardant, which is not great if they're away.
I would have thought about that.
Yeah, that's some of the differences between the uniforms and that as well. Like I know even the boots are different when they're at sea and when they're alongshore. I can't remember which one, but one is significantly lighter. Like I can knock it over if I accidentally kick it.
Cement in, one doesn't.
Yeah, pretty. No, we weighed them, and I think it was like 1.5 kilo difference between the shore ones and the sea ones. Yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
Wow, that's just amazing. Never would have thought.
No, it just means there's more crap around my house though, because there's uniform pieces everywhere.
Weighing uniforms?
Oh, we did, because it was like an ongoing joke, because I'm like, I kept trying to move these pair of shoes around. I'm like, they are so heavy compared to the other ones. And he goes, let's weigh them. And so we did.
Wow.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Before we go, tell us how anyone can contact you if they're interested in speaking to you.
Yeah, certainly.
Website, et cetera.
So social media, so through Facebook and Instagram, it's at Someone I Love Is in Defence, and then directly through my website. So that's www.someoneIloveisindefence.com.au.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bianca. It's been very interesting to hear the stories behind the scenes, because as I said, for us, for me, on this, seeing people on the street or talking about the Defence Force, we have no idea.
There's an air of mystery and awe there, isn't there?
That's it.
Because it's sort of like, until you know, you don't know, and so there's a lot of it's defence, it's all secretive.
It is, yeah.
It doesn't.
That's right.
It's not all secretive. It's not all like that, but it's still got that air to it.
It does have that air to it. So I appreciate the fact that you've and I think the books are amazing. I think you're going to have to do another lot for something else.
Well, I actually joked thinking that I could do them for like FIFO or doctors' children and things like that.
FIFO.
Are they? Yep.
Yeah, my husband was away for FIFO when my kids are very little. Very similar situation to Defence Force, I would imagine. Although I did know when he was coming home. That's the difference.
But the children still have to deal with that separation.
And it wasn't easy. And it wasn't easy as being a partner either with that. So I think FIFO might be the way to go.
Yeah, possibly. No, we'll wait and see. I'm just kind of waiting to see how these ones kind of tick along. And to be honest, I've almost lost a little bit of momentum. I feel like I've sent so many emails and spent so many hours pouring into them at the moment.
You need to see results to make you pick up again.
Well, not even see results. I think I'm a little bit burnt out as well. Because I feel like, I went full ball and then I was like, in the midst of it. And now I'm like, oh no, I need to get my mental health back in check because I've just devoted so much time and headspace to it. Now I just need to kind of take a step back and focus on myself again and my children. And I think it probably didn't help that my husband did go back to sea, so I didn't have that extra time. So my focus was on my children and not necessarily on the books, or it was obviously still on my work and that. But I think you just have to prioritize different things.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have one last really big and really important questions. Do the Tamar Wallabies make an appearance in the books?
No, they don't.
Oh.
Because they're only in WA.
I know. For the listeners out there, we have these gorgeous little wallabies that are a very specific species called the Tamar wallabies. They are native to Garden Island
and Penguin Island
in Western
too,
Australia. And Penguin Island?
I think they're on Penguin Island as well, yeah.
But in Western Australia only. They are not on the mainland. They are a protected species.
I don't know.
They are absolutely gorgeous, or they are a little bit stupid at times.
Yes, I've accidentally had a few under my car.
Yeah, and we have to ring a special number when we do that, and it
because they're protected. Yeah. No, I had to be really careful with the books. I had to kind of make sure I had activities for everything, and I didn't want to exclude one service or one rate or anything like that. So even within these books, I know over here we have a lot of Submariner families. So there is a few Submariner activities in here, but I actually ended up doing them individually as well. Yeah. So I did a different pack just for those families because it wasn't. all those activities didn't necessarily need to be in these books. So it's really good for other kids in Navy families to understand that we do have submarines, but also they didn't need to have every second one as a submariner activity, considering when you look at the statistics, I think submarines is maybe like not even 10% of the Australian Defence Force.
Someone I love is a submariner.
No, not quite.
No?
They're just like online printables.
Pack.
But yeah, there's quite a lot of free printables online. And that was just one of the packs that I wanted to do because it was something that was close to my heart.
Yes.
Awesome. Yep. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you spending the time with us this morning. It's been interesting. And if any new stuff comes out, let us know and we'll have you back in.
Will do. Thank you so much for having me on, Mission Todd.
Cheers. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
More music. Better mental health. Only on IPL Radio.